Welcome everybody to another Awakening conversation. Today we have Glen Morris here, who is a mindset coach from Focus Your Thinking. So I wanted him to come on today specifically for the COVID-19 series, just so people can get some more ideas and keep expanding their mind on how they can get through this difficult time. So welcome, Glen.
Hello, Sara.
Glen and I have known each other for probably about 15 years, and Glen has been my coach for at least, I think we're probably over the 10-year mark. So I have a big insight into how Glen works and Glen's mindset, and how he helps shift my mindset if I get stuck in anything. So I thought it'd be really helpful for people during this time. So what I find really fascinating, Glen, is that, you know, the amount of people I talk to, and I know that you would be the same, you talk to people all over the world, and we're all kind of facing the same global pandemic, and we're all focused on the same thing, but the way it's affecting us individually is really quite varied and sometimes almost polar opposite from one person to another.
Absolutely.
And I'm just wondering, like, what your take is on that. Like, I feel like the people that have had a massive change in their lifestyles, you know, say, for example, I was talking to someone in Paris who was in his mid-20s, and he was used to leaving the house at 9 o'clock in the morning, going to uni, lecturing at uni, going out dancing and coming back after midnight. And now he's restricted to being inside his 40 square centimetre apartment block, and he's not allowed to go outside. Like, something like that's really extreme for someone of that age, and gets all their social interaction from outside, as opposed to, say, myself, who I'm still working part-time, as I'm still considered essential services in Australia. And I kind of feel extra busy because I'm now homeschooling as well. But my actual lifestyle, like, I still get to go exercise, I still go outside, I still get to go to the beach. My actual lifestyle hasn't changed, so I don't feel the effects of it like a lot of other people.
And I think that's the case in most of those individual cases that you're talking about, whether the people have felt restricted or whether they have felt like nothing's really changed. And whether both ways, they can still go down a bad road. Like, if things haven't changed, then it's almost like looking at the government as to why have you put these restrictions on us? Because nothing has really changed. And the other side, it's like, yeah, but you've just taken everything away from me.
Yeah,
like,
that's so true. I hadn't thought about that.
Everything away from me. Why did you do that? And it's not really, you know, the thing that everybody's sort of, the proximity is the closely related thing is the thing that they're focusing on, not the core of what's actually happening. And the core is the pandemic. The actual virus is the thing. It's everybody else is doing the best that they can with, you know, dealing with those resources. Like, governments are trying to do the best they can as far as what they think is the right thing to do. And some of those things are sort of encroaching on how we do things. Other things are like, yeah, it doesn't really matter to me. It was interesting, like reading, you know, me, I always love to read, and book Indistractable is they're talking about these two cases in regards to smoking and almost like kicking that habit, or seeing, is the habit the nicotine or is it something else? So they took two lots of air hosts that were smokers, and they were going from a Europe town to another Europe town or to New York. So the New York leg was 10 hours. To the other Europe, it was only 3 hours. So they started to track, and they had to write down, were they feeling the pains of needing a cigarette? Because it was against the law to smoke. So as soon as they were in the air hostesses that were going to just internally to Europe, and it was only a 3-hour flight, started to feel those effects as they were getting close to the airport that they were coming towards. The same amount of time, the New York air hostess weren't even thinking about that. So basically what it comes down to is as those restrictions were coming down and just about to be opened up, more people went stir crazy.
Oh, interesting, because that's exactly where we are now.
Correct. So as soon as it got clamped down, everybody's, oh, okay. And as soon as it gets longer and longer and longer, it's still okay. But as soon as there's sort of inklings that it's going to open up, that's when everybody gets stir crazy.
I definitely want to talk about that a little bit more as well. Maybe we should talk about that now, because again, like some people, as this is now about to open up, like if I look at my different kids and where they're at, and I look at friends and where they're at in the conversations that I've had, like my kids are like really excited to go back to school. They just want to go back full time. I've dealt with some kind of teenagers which really want to go back to school, but they're freaking out a bit. My eldest went back to school full time from today, and he was feeling a bit overwhelmed because he's been working at home for now like 6 weeks or so. And going back to school full time, he was quite happy to do that. And he tells me it's because he's an introvert and he's quite happy with his own energy and his own company. And going back kind of into the world of people like full time, he's finding it a bit overwhelming. Another friend of mine is kind of feeling like a bit overwhelmed because she's kind of adapted to this way, but also has put a lot of pressure on herself that she should have achieved a certain amount before things are lifted, and now things look like they're about to be lifted and she hasn't achieved. She's kind of freaking out a bit because of that.
Yeah. And really it's your perspective. Everybody's got a different perspective, and it doesn't matter how you get that perspective. That's just what you think. And like typically as humans, we're driven to want more or to do more with the time that we have. So it's not necessarily constructively doing more, we just do more.
Yeah.
And whether that's internal, whether that's external, like depending on your personality, like you'll look for those external things to do more. And, you know, I've got one of my clients who is like social butterfly, and you know, she's feeling the restrictions as far as not being able to go out to restaurants every single night. She's doing more home cooking. She's more healthy, and she's saved a ton of money. She's going, man. But she started to express that in getting all these friends on like, what's it called? House Party, not Zoom. The other app that's become quite popular in regards.
Yeah, I know the one.
Having all these groups of friends together, and she's been the person organising all those different things. Do you know what I mean? So you start to divert as to what your perspective is and what you need to do to balance that out.
So can I ask you, like with those different types of scenarios, what kind of perspectives would they have? Like what would the perspective of that social butterfly person, what perspective would she have?
Well, she's trying to replace and all the safety things, because obviously she's also got asthma from that perspective. So she's more susceptible to, if she was actually to catch the coronavirus or COVID-19, then she likely would be a worse victim of that. So she was really careful the first sort of week, 2 weeks, and saying, I'm not doing anything. Like not going anywhere, not doing anything. I'll just lock down, because that's just 2 weeks. Everybody can bear that type of thing. But then it started to, I'll just go do this. I'll just go do this. So she's looking for ways to replace that social interaction without physically touching people, but still getting that physical, the actual social interaction. For the people that are more introverted, or, and we're going to talk about sort of motivational strategies, which are controlling things or achieving things, they're just going to look for the ways to be able to do those things, which is the more of the focus. Clearly, she was supposed to achieve things, so it's having a list and ticking those things off, but she's probably got caught up in other things that are happening.
Okay. So she's just like looking for other ways to fulfill her own needs, basically.
Correct.
Okay. And what about, like, say, with my eldest, who is, you know, like freaking out a little bit about going back to school after kind of getting really used to being in his own company and studying at home? What kind of perspective could you explain to people that he might have that's just different?
Well, in what sense do you mean by different? Like his coping mechanisms, or why is he freaking out when he's going back?
Yeah. Because you said it's all about perspective. So, what perspective would he have that is making it hard for him to go back to school?
Well, and you sort of said it. It's easy to fall into, you're just the introverted person. He would have had certain situations where he was in control of that social environment, but he's not in control of this social environment. Like, people are going to do different things.
So again, it kind of comes back to what his motivation is behind it.
Correct, because he's only freaking out because in the past, he's got into this routine where he can control those social environments, whereas now it's like it's a new world. Like, what do you do now? Like, you just can't walk up and shake hands. You can't, physically be close to people. All those things start to go, well, okay, just because we can go back doesn't mean that we can't do these other things. So the person who's trying to control things is like, well, how do I control these people?
Actually,
social person, it's like a sonar, like a radar. They're bouncing off, seeing what that person's doing. Oh, I do it this way. Whereas if you don't do that, it's like,
whole new set of rules.
That's right. What's my social cues now?
Right. Okay. That's probably what's, this other teenager that I had a couple of weeks ago who is like he didn't really love school academically, but had loved the sport aspect, loved the social aspect, and had some goals. I think he wasn't a teenager. He was in year 6, had some sporting goals this year, and they've kind of all been taken away from him. So he's been at home and studying and stuff and just is itching to go back to school, but has said to me, I just feel different now. Like he feels different. He's freaking out a bit that he feels different going back into what was, and he doesn't quite know how it's going to be. But that would go back to, again, that kind of control motivation strategy.
Well, and it depends. It depends what, he said he liked to play sport. What type of sports?
I think he had goals for cross country, goals for soccer, goals for rugby.
So running, and then also team sports. Team sports is going to be really hard. Contacting other people and without knowing whether they've got it or not, that's a really hard thing. Like, I had to go to
but also whether the schools are even going to allow it, at this stage.
Well, they're probably going to be more led by, unfortunately, in Australia, rugby league or rugby or AFL. What they do is just going to be copied.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, sure, they're looking for the financial, to get things financially back on, track. But that's socially, or what people do is just going to copy that.
Yeah.
So you don't really know. Like, as I was just about to say, I went to the dentist because my tooth was playing up, and I said, how's he been going? Because there's been a lot of restrictions as to what they can do. He said he went through HIV, and basically he had to assume that everybody had it. Like, for him to act in a way that he could respect everybody, he just had to treat everybody that they had it. And just take all those precautions. So it's going to be a similar thing. Like, just because everything's open doesn't mean everybody's not contagious or hasn't got it, whatever. So it's going to be pretty unsettling until they have some sort of way of, either immunizing people or getting on top of that.
I loved how the way my mindset's been with working as a chiropractor during this time has been. Initially I wasn't really sure about, I didn't want to be part of the problem. I wanted to be there for my clients, but I didn't want to be part of the problem. So And then I heard Jacinta Ardern, New Zealand's Prime Minister, say, act as if you've got it. So it's like if you act like you've got it, you're not freaking out that everyone else is having it. You're actually respecting that you don't want to invade other people's space because you're a carrier. And I thought that was a really great way of putting it as well. So I kind of adopted that mindset and made sure I was gloved and masked so I wasn't being part of the problem and spreading it to my patients as a potential carrier without symptoms. So I really liked that kind of mindset around it as well. But yeah, I get that what that dentist said too. You know, you've just got to act like that's how it is.
And most of this stuff, like most of you start talking about mindset, it's really as soon as you can solidify a perspective, then you're right. Like if there's uncertainty about the way that you're going to act, then that comes across. Okay, it comes across in your actions and it comes across in your behaviour too.
Yeah. So what might be some healthy mindsets that people could adopt?
Well, and it's once again you got to look at the facts as to what are the facts, and then you've got to say, okay, what do I do in my life, and am I going to interact in certain ways? What's okay? What's not okay? You know, even I was thinking as you were talking about the other story is going back to school. Like when I go to my cafe, you know, straight away it was almost like they started to wear masks and wear gloves, and then it was still everything was open type of thing. Then they put these, you know, almost like shields up type of thing. But even they put the shields up, you sort of go, oh yeah, and I'm going, okay, I shouldn't do that. So I got into this habit of walking up, talking into the shield and feeling comfortable that I'm talking into a shield because it's there to protect both of us. Type of thing. But you sort of just go, oh, what's that thing in the way? You know, it doesn't need to be there type of thing. So it's getting used to how you interact in your life, and so that becomes a habit.
So it's just accepting where things are at and working out like what your boundaries are and respecting other people's boundaries, essentially.
Yeah, you're correct. Like, and I live in an apartment that's got lifts, and like prior to this, you know, you try and cram as many people into that lift as possible. These days, it's almost like, how many people are in there? I'll wait for the next one.
I'll take the stairs.
Well, you can't even take the stairs. You have to take the lift. But,
Yeah, right.
But that's the case. Like, even though it's lined up, everybody's now just that little bit more patient. Like, there's other people that are not, but I choose not to be that way because that's my perspective. Do you know what I mean? Like, as soon as you see those type of things, you almost like got to guide yourself to what's going to make me feel safe, and also the people around you feeling safe too. And like even walking down streets, it's like, yeah, that's too close, or people getting too close type of thing, and you just got to respect people's boundaries.
I was just thinking about that as well with, you know, the smaller kids in my family just itching to go back to school because they actually don't have that perspective about social distancing and catching it and getting sick and potentially dying. You know, they just don't have that mindset. So they're just like, let me back to school. Nothing's really changed in their life. They've just been on a long holiday and done a bit of homeschooling.
Correct.
Yeah, right. I hadn't thought of that like that as well.
And once again, it's not right or wrong. It's just how they're thinking about it.
Yeah. The other thing that I find fascinating, Glenn, so I'd like your perspective on it, which might be helpful for people as well, is you know, like some people kind of at the start of this found the start hard and now kind of getting easier. And some people found the start easy and it's getting harder the longer it goes on. What would be part of that kind of?
Well, and once again, you come down to depending on what was happening at the start. Like a lot of people were okay at the start because it's only going to be 2 weeks. Like, and all the media that they're hearing, like not from Australia, typically it was more American or the UK, because that's where we get our news from, was everything's fine. Like everything's fine. They go, okay, if it's only going to be 2 weeks, I can grin and bear that. Okay, so they were okay at the start, but then as soon as I went past that, I said, hold on a second, it's gone more than that. What's going on here?
And worsening there as well.
Well, that's right.
I'm seeing that.
It's getting worse, but still it's like, hold on a second, this was supposed to pass really quickly. So countries like New Zealand that really went hard, and like Australia went just as hard, early was a little bit easier in the sense of, oh, okay, adjust. Okay, we're not going to get out of this thing too soon. Then you're okay. Whereas it was light at the start and now it comes down heavy, then you don't feel it. And once again, like some people could have been saying, in their head, they're going, it's not going to be that long. It's not going to be that long. Hold on a second. It's going way too long. So as it went on, they got worse. Okay. Whereas the people up front that said, this is going to be bad, this is going to be horrific, as soon as it wasn't as bad, because it isn't, unless you're around, typically say New York or in Italy or in Spain, in Madrid, you're not seeing physically people dying, or you're not seeing the reality of that. So it isn't as bad. So it's an inconvenience, but at least I'm alive.
Yeah. Okay. And how do you think, there, and again, I guess it's how much it influences your perspective, but, I've chosen, well, not that I have that much time anyway, but I've kind of chosen deliberately not to watch that much news. I get a little bit of an update, on a Sunday when I kind of need to know what's happening with the next week. But I know a lot of people are watching it 24/7, and how that would really totally influence your perspective.
Well, then they're getting drawn into themes that, certain people, the news is good from the perspective of giving you the facts of what's going on. The bad side of it is they need to keep on having your attention. So they're going to, give you certain things to keep that attention, and that's what you get sucked into. It's the same as
and that's usually the fear stuff and the stressful things and the anxiety and needing to know more because you think you need to know.
Correct. And if it's helpful to you as far as understanding the situation, that's great. But if it gets into the fear and you really feeling like, the world's going to end, not good.
Yeah. So how do you manage it? What do you do?
I've just been focusing on really looking at the patterns of the numbers and where the numbers are going from that perspective. Looking at the news in regards to how certain countries are handling it. Obviously, I've got clients all around the world, so it's a real effect. I've got to look at, what are they communicating, how are they communicating that, are they doing the sensible thing or the right thing, because that's going to affect people's businesses and, their livelihoods. So I'm also looking at it from that perspective. Try as you may, I don't think you can ever be immune to being sucked into the fear of certain things are going to happen, but it's trying to look through the patterns as opposed to the way that they're telling that story. Yeah.
So using your own kind of compass as to whether this is good for you or not. So the way you're feeling about it.
And correct. And I read a really good article overnight that I'd seen a few days ago and sort of saved as to, they're sort of saying it's not going to be as bad of depression. Like when this first hit, I went into mode of this is going to be really bad. Like even in China, when everything was happening in China, that's going to have the ripple effect of things being bad. As soon as it spread to all these other countries, of course that's going to be bad. But this article, and it was basically from the Harvard Business Review, went through all the reasons that we won't have this huge depression.
Do you mean in Australia specifically?
No, around the world.
Around the world. Oh, okay.
And basically it was because, the depression really happened and because we weren't there and you don't really know the news, but politically they didn't act as fast and they let these banks fall over. So that's why we got into this depression. And they haven't done this time around because they've learned the lessons from the global financial crisis, and they said this is going to be even worse. So they're supplying more paper, so it's not going to go that way. And there was 3 other things that basically indicators as to why it won't go that way. And as soon as I read it, I went, that makes really good sense, and that gives me a little bit more comfort that it's not going to get that bad. Do you know what I mean? Like, bad in regards to people dying, it's horrific. Like, I'm not discounting any of that. But, the flow-on effects and the second, third sort of effects to that is a lot more people could be affected.
Yeah, interesting. The other thing that, so I want to get into motivation strategies, and maybe I'm thinking there's a few different groups. There's like motivation strategies for, say, people that, let's think of it this way. People that want to shift their business, like if their business can't have the same model because of however COVID-19 has influenced it. So like their motivation strategies as to how to shift their business. Other people kind of want to make the most of this time to maybe be creative, or not necessarily about business, but maybe think of doing their life differently, but can't kind of get going. And then the other group of people that kind of do concern me are people who are stuck in like bad situations, domestic violence sort of situations, or relationships that aren't working for them, or various other reasons. So people, how they can kind of motivate themselves to help to see their way out of things. And I guess it's all the same thing. It's kind of seeing it in a different light, seeing it in a different picture. But, I'd like to kind of talk about that because I think that might be helpful for people.
Well, we talk about, and we've talked several times in regards to about the core motivational strategies. Obviously, there's the directional as far as how people are motivated, and like it's pretty much split down the center in regards to either towards something that people are motivated, or they're trying to move away from a bad situation and actually have something better, but they need to realize they're in a bad situation to actually do anything. So, and usually this is the carrots and the sticks, but from a certain extent, people always want to be heading towards something. So they're always thinking about what they can be doing in the future. Okay, what could I be doing more? What could I be doing is something a little bit outside of what I'm doing? So they're always focused on something else as opposed to where they are now. Mm-hmm. Because the people that are moving away, they need to realize, because they just keep on doing things until where I am.
It's not bad enough. It's not bad enough.
That's right. Where I am is not really a great situation.
Is that the kind of people that have to hit rock bottom before they change something? Is that sort of scenario as well?
Well, it is, because it needs to be bad enough to make that change. The pain needs to be bad enough for them to make that change. So they're looking for something. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. That's not okay.
Mm. And everyone's level of that is so different, right? Like. Yeah.
There's multiple ways of people looking at that, and multiple ways, like it could be the richest person in the world, and they're thinking, I've just lost a few $1 billion. This is devastating. There's somebody who's hasn't got any money, not got any income coming in, are devastated because how am I going to pay for anything coming in? They still feel the same way. Like the impact on them feels the same way. Doesn't matter where they are.
So those, sorry to interrupt again, but those people who are in really bad situations now, this may actually be an opportunity for them to go, this is just not okay anymore. It's unbearable. I have to move. So in a way, hopefully for those people, this is enough to go, enough.
Yes. Well, enough to make those changes. I mean, it's not necessarily enough is now I'm going to leave. enough is enough of putting up with this.
Yeah.
Something has to change, or I just can't keep on going on like this.
Yeah.
Because they keep on, it's okay. I'll just get to this, and then there's no light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So that could be financially, relationships, personal stuff.
Well, and it's always the big three, like wealth, which is financially your business or your work or how you are earning money. Your health in regards to, you keep on not wanting to lose that weight, or, the bad diet that you're on, or not doing any exercise. And then finally you say, my health has suffered too much, I need to change that. Or the relationship, and that's relationship with your family, relationship with an intimate partner, and relationship with friends. It's always, something's going to be strained, and people keep on putting up with it, or they're going to make a change.
Okay, cool. So that kind of is like the toward away from motivation.
And then you break it down into 3 motives that you have, and it's really the perspective that people see that from. And you start to talk about the first one is achievement, which is focusing on the task. Okay, so whatever the task is, those sort of people tend to focus more on just getting that thing done, or having something to do which makes them feel fulfilled. Okay, so they don't focus on how to do that. They don't focus on who they interact with that. They just focus only on doing the thing, okay, and keep on doing that over and over and over. The next side of that is the actual control. Like, how I do it is more important than what I'm doing and who I do it with. So as you look at how you do it, it's almost like, no, we don't do it that way. We do it this way. Or, no, if you do it that way, it's not going to work. So they're constantly trying to micromanage things and it be done a certain way. And it's really hard to let go of those controls, because they know, or they think that they know more than the other person, and that's not going to go the right way. The last is more that relationship, which is the connection with somebody else. So the highest priority for them is that connection's got to be right before I can do anything or how I do anything. So the first thing that they're looking for is, once I've got that connection, then everything's fine. So they focus on, do you think I'm a good person? Or, getting more people socially engaged and saying, this is a good idea, isn't it? And everybody agrees with them. Oh, yeah, I feel good now. Everybody's saying that what I'm saying is socially acceptable, then they can move forward from there. Okay, so depending on the perspective you have, and then all of those things you can touch on. Like, everybody touches on those things and has a little bit of them in them, but there's ones that is the primary source, is the first thing that you look at. Like, you could be the first thing that you look at is, no, it's got to be done a certain way. So you're more so looking at that control, and that's how they'll approach everything, okay? So they'll first need to get that, and then they'll have something that's secondary to that. And it may be, like, the secondary may be the achievement of it, okay? They don't worry too much about the person, and that becomes a little bit of their blind spot, but they're looking for the combination of those two things, controlling it and achieving it, balances them out. Okay, or they could be the social person that socially they put this together, and the way that they control that feels better. Okay, if somebody tries to take control, feels good, but I just need to control this. I need to get those people coming together. So from there, I started to look at that, and if you figure out what your primary is, that's the spark. Okay. Like that's the almost like the like you talk about combustion engines, the spark that gets the engine going. Okay, so that's the spark for your motivation.
So what type of questions could you ask yourself, like, about like finding that spark?
Well, and I was talking to one client that's he's personal training, but he's corporate personal training, so putting these programs together. And straight away, like he's being paid because the contract that he's got is still being paid, even though the workers are not there. They're still upholding those contracts that they've got with the building. So he's still being paid, but some of these things started to happen where they were taking the control away from him, and he's a control person. He started feeling really unmotivated. I'm going, why are you feeling unmotivated? He said, these dumb people keep on doing these different things, and I can't, everything's in lockdown, and the government can't, you can't do these things. And I said, well, okay, then what can you control? He goes, well, I can do this, this, and this. I said, why don't you focus on that? He goes, yeah, I could be focused more on that. I said, well, forget about those other things, because you're not going to be able to get the control back of those other things, okay? But the things that you focused on can spark that motivation. As soon as you start writing all these different things, he says, that feels so much better.
Yeah.
And it's the perspective that he's coming from, because he felt like all these things are being taken away from me and I can control nothing.
So the control person would be really struggling with this situation more so.
Well, it depends.
That does depend. Yeah, because I'm just thinking about the other things.
It depends if things have been taken away from them and how they do it. If they quickly
that's
adjust,
their perspective.
That's right. If they quickly adjust and they say, well, I've still control all these things. And I will do these things, they still feel motivated.
Yeah. Okay. So if someone kind of is asking themselves where that spark is it because they feel that, they like to be in control of a situation, or...
Well, and that's just the control side, sparking that.
Yeah.
So, of course, that all the people that are not feeling motivated and they're coming from the control perspective, straight away they would have felt really nervous because everything's changed.
Yes. Yeah.
Everything has changed.
Yeah.
So I've set my environment up. So if they were working from home already, then less. If they're working in an office and now they're working at home, it's almost like, what do I do here? As soon as they got their rhythm, then they're feeling a little bit more motivated.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
From the achievement side of things, really they're more about the task and doing that task. Now that's been almost distilled down to in four walls, or so if you're essential, then yes, you can keep on achieving those things. But straight away, if they physically are doing stuff, then they're going to feel less motivated, because more I do is better. So if I'm doing less, I don't feel motivated. So they've just got to change their perspective and go, okay, what are the things that I'm doing? I'm really getting all these things done in the confines of doing this, so that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And they've just got to feel that and put lists together. Like if they're working in their home, get a whiteboard, physically see the things that they're doing, because that's what gives them that spark to motivate.
And that sense of achievement that they are still getting through their things.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's all their perspective. Am I doing things? But if you're sitting in one place, because to achieve things, it's motion.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And if you're not moving as much, then you don't feel as motivated. So in some cases, it's moving just a little bit and putting it in different locations, so you're getting that sense of motion.
Okay, yeah. Or even exercising as well, putting that on the list of things to actually achieve in the day.
Correct. And if you look at that, it depends on how people were exercising. For me, it wasn't really affected because I was on a bike and I didn't ride in groups of people, so I was riding by myself. So really have not been affected. When it first started, I'm going, okay, I may not be able to ride my bike. That's going to be put on hold. But as soon as it was lifted, nothing changed. There's people who've been going to a gym. It's like your whole exercise routine has been taken away. And generally those people that do weights and, from that perspective, like, they don't like the cardio side of things. They only do the cardio as almost like the warm down or the warm up type of thing. And now they're saying, just go for a walk. Well, that's not going to do anything. They can't even go to a park and like physically pick up exercise machines. I know a friend of mine who was in a gym. She converted a whole garage into a gym, and then
I know a few people that have done that.
Like then she felt motivated because now I'm back into my routine.
Yeah.
So the last of those motives is the connection, or affiliation, and that connection to people. Now these people have probably been feeling it the most, okay? Because it's usually touch, that's usually connecting in that way, and all that's been taken away. Like really hard to do that type of stuff. Even like, yes, you could be checked out that everything's fine on you, but how do you know? Like that's a changing thing. Like you could have touched something and just picked it up and you don't know. So really feeling it. So, typically when I'm speaking to a person that is of that ilk, it's not that they can't do that when it comes back up, or when we're able to ease that off and actually give people hugs, or shake their hand, or physically be close to those people to feel that. It's looking at other ways of getting that connection.
Like your client who's doing the social kind of house party type thing, getting that kind of affiliation and
like feeling that, and like still like drinking the alcohol and having somebody close to them. She just feels that that's a good thing for her. But the other thing that I've been saying to those people is, because they feel and like they have this bias towards, no, physically being in front of people is always going to be bad. Until you can't do that, then like, what do? Like, you can't actually physically connect with a person just because, there's this distance, just because it's on a video. Like, I've had to adapt because my clients are around the world, that if I didn't adapt to have that same connection through video, then I wouldn't have a business. So what you need to do is to increase the strength of, this is just another way of building that connection. If you can find a better way to have that connection, and then you add to that as soon as this is lifted, then you've improved yourself. And that's really, to a certain extent, is holding those sort of social events, or being able to quickly convert to that sort of social scene so they get that connection, and in looking for more enriched ways, because that will spark them to feel motivated. Like even if it's a really quick connection, they feel that spark.
Yeah, that's great. So people are kind of looking, if they're not feeling motivated and feeling a bit flat and feeling deflated, and it's like looking for even some of the things you've said, Glen. It's like if some of the things you've said have like triggered that spark, it probably means that's one of your primary motivation strategies. So some of those ideas and points you brought up might just help get people kind of going and on a bit of a roll.
It's all you need is that roll.
Yeah.
Like, it's a fallacy that you will sit down and be motivated for long periods of time. You're almost like distracting yourself to get into something, and once you're doing that, time goes fast. Okay, if you're even sitting down for a 5-minute rule just to do something, to like, if you're feeling unmotivated, then sit down for 5 minutes and do something, and then see how long time goes. Generally, you go way past that 5 minutes and you feel more motivated because you're getting things done, or you're actually actively doing something, so you feel better. And like, as you know, like your structure and your posture, generally when we're unmotivated, is more like closed in type of thing. You're feeling sorry for yourself. Whereas just get up and move around, or physically concentrating on something, is you feeling motivated.
Yeah. And even like setting the goals as really, really, really low so you can achieve it, like 5 minutes. Just set a timer and just do something for 5 minutes and see how you go, just to see if you can get going with that.
And then you increase that time.
Mm.
From there, you go on to doing it more regular. And it's just like exercise, like building up that muscle.
Yeah. I was talking to my partner, I think it was yesterday, and I'm kind of getting to that feeling of, things are starting to lift. And I said to him, I think it was yesterday, I feel like this time is it's very precious time. And there's part of me that wishes I had a bit more boredom. People are complaining that they're really bored. And I'm like, yeah, I wish I had a bit of that, a bit more of that at the moment. But I just thought, no, like this, it's an opportunity, and I really want to, make sure I'm making the most of it. So I said to him last night, I said, what about, I just want to change a few habits up, get some really good habits in place. And I said, what about, because we've actually started watching some series on Netflix at nighttime after the kids go to bed. And now the kids are going to bed quite easily. We've got this time together, which has been really lovely. But I also said, what, we're staying up a bit late, and then I'm actually sleeping better because my little one's only waking up once, but I'm not making the most of my sleep. So my suggestion was, what about we go to bed a little bit earlier, do a meditation together, and then if we want to be intimate or whatever, I'm not going to be in the headspace of like, oh, I've just stayed up and, watch TV and now I actually just got to go to sleep. I don't want to have sex or anything. I just want to go to sleep. Whereas if we went to bed earlier and we did a meditation together, we'd actually both be in a nice, really relaxed state. So if we did want to make love or anything, that would be better. Then you get into a deeper sleep pattern, and then waking up in the morning and doing some exercise first thing in the morning instead of straight into the homeschooling thing from my side of things. So we started doing that last night, and it was really nice just to do a meditation, and we both ended up just falling asleep, but it was nice and early and got into a really deep sleep. And I thought that's a routine that I really want to set up before the end of this period. So it's like we can take the benefits out of this time that we've had that is actually very, very unique in our lifetimes, and we're probably not going to have forced lockdown of any sort again in our lifetime. So it's like, as we make our way back into our normal lives, hopefully we're not just going to go back to how it was. Hopefully it's like we can we have this now perspective of like, they're more isolated, slowing things down, looking at it from a different perspective and going, well, was my life the way it was before that ideal in every way? Or is part of what I've learned in this period, can I bring into my new life and have more balance? I feel like it's a big opportunity for us to look at it in a different way and decide how we want to do it instead, rather than just be eager to jump back into how life was before. I feel like that would be such a big waste if we were to do that.
Yeah, well, I don't think things are going to go back to normal.
I don't either. But like in terms of like as individuals, I think, in our individual lives, if we can kind of learn from this period, I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah, and that's always the goal. Like always the goal is learning from that and putting those things in place. And really it's realizing that people have the control or have the ability to be able to do those and change all those different habits you've got. Like really habits, why have you got the habits that you've got anyway? It's just you fell into those. It's going, are these the habits that I really want to have, or is there something I want to do differently that makes me feel better?
Mm. Yeah. And as we go through different periods of our life, we should be wanting to change our habits anyway, because we're in different periods of our life. They shouldn't just stay the same just because they're a habit. But a lot of people just aren't even aware of it, right? And then when we get locked down and it's like freak out because we can't do our normal habits, it's like, well, how are they serving us anyway? Which ones were good habits, which ones are habits to improve? I've said that to a lot of my clients, like this is the perfect time to actually really look at your bad habits in terms of how it's affecting your health and deciding to change it.
Well, and we talked about the other day, and I gave you the acronym of the shift in that regard. But really, we only look at habits if they're serving us really well or if they're bad. Okay, because we've got all these other habits that we actually do. We mindlessly do all these other habits because that's just the way we do it.
Yeah.
And you're only changing the ones that, and we tend to look down on the world, more so look from the negative bias side of things instead of the positive side. So we're always looking at, that's a bad habit, but we don't really make the action to make that change. And it's looking at the core of those, and really first is looking at the situation that those habits actually are happening. Okay, so the situation, and
so this is the SHIFT acronym, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So I was about to say, let's go into that.
Why isn't this situation the best possible scenario that I want? Again, it's looking at those habits, which is the H. The habits is causing that. Okay, unaware of you don't know that you've got this habit until you go, this situation keeps on happening. It's because of that habit. And straight away, as soon as you see that habit, once again, we're not going to change unless it's terrible, or if that's good, we're going to do it more often. Okay, so you've got to look into the future and make it worse. Like if I keep on doing this habit that I've got right now, like if you started to look at your Netflix habits, which start with it's okay, but then you start to say every night you are going to do that. Every night you're going to waste 2 hours of just mindlessly watching Netflix. What's going to happen? That's going to turn into a habit, and 20 years down the track, you're going, yeah, we should have stopped back then, like 2 hours. What could we have done with that time? And you got to really make it bad. You go, oh, that's the implication of that habit.
Yeah,
as soon as you look at the implication of that habit, you go, got to change that. So then you go, okay, what am I going to focus on? What's the new habit that I can do? And you just did it. You go, okay, we're not doing that habit. We're going to do this other habit. And whether it turns out to be like, 2 hours of meditation, that's a good thing. You know what I mean? So that's worth focusing on to change that habit. All it takes is, why were you sitting down to watch the Netflix anyway? To relax. And meditation, I'm going to relax.
Well, Wynn's first thought was, well, I don't know if I want to do it every night. What about 3 days a week? And I'm like, well, how is it going to be a habit if we do it 3 days a week? We're not going to form the habit of it. And he's like, but I've got to do research. And I'm like, well, on Facebook.
Pass it off as so then you focus and really focus on the habit, and like it's intensely focusing until it's a habit.
Yeah,
it's not, and like what you just said is, if you can maintain it 3 times a week and it turns into the habit of 3 times a week, great. If not, you're fooling yourself just saying, oh yeah, I don't really want to change that habit.
Yeah.
So you got to focus until the habit can change, and then you've got it. You just got it kicked, then it's fine. But yeah, it's focusing there. And then the T is the transformation that happens, like at that end. So you're constantly shifting these smaller habits that it's clustered around the behavior that you don't really want to see. Okay, so in all these situations, there's certain things that you just change these small habits, and you go through that process, focus, change it, do it this way. Feels a little bit lighter, then you do something else, a little bit lighter, and then all of a sudden it feels so much easier to do because you've changed all these insignificant habits to now better habits.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the same with kids. Like, they're just copying you. So if you get them into the consistent that behavior, then those situations are changing.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you so much. I just want to re-emphasize that SHIFT acronym. The S is for situation, like looking at your situation. The H is looking at the habits around the situation that's been created. The I is projecting into the future to see how these habits are going to, the implication that these habits are going to have, good or bad. And then what's after that? F is where you want to put your focus, what habits need to be changed, and then the transformation that happens once these new habits are in place.
Correct.
And then everything changes. The implication, the situation then changes because of all of that. So, yeah, thank you so much, Glenn. It's been another fascinating conversation that we've had together, and I hope our listeners have gotten as much out of it as I have. And I look forward to. Oh, could you let people know where to find you as well?
Just look up the website Focus Your Thinking, or the one word.com. You should be able to find me.
Okay. What about social media?
Yeah, it's the same thing. Like
Focus Your Thinking, Facebook.
Correct.
What's the other one? Instagram, all that. It's all Focus Your Thinking.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Thanks again, and have a good day. If you loved or learnt something in this episode, share it, and don't forget to subscribe. I look forward to bringing you next week's Awakening Conversation. Have a wonderful week.